And if you actually look at the bloodlines, it's very possible that he actually could have Egyptian bloodline in him. He's not just, quote, black African. He's actually black African Arab is what he is.
And an Atlantean specialist, one of the studies Atlantis, was on Coast to Coast recently and said that Obama would speak fluent Atlantean because it's actually a base rate of the Indonesian language. So he also speaks Atlantean, just to add to that.
Yeah. Now, people find this a little weird, but the fact is that it's like the symbology. The occultists around the world are very into numerology, times and dates, like 9/11. They're very into things like things occurring at the 33rd parallel. There's specific things, and you see these patterns, which is why you see certain dates and locations, which is why I've said and repeatedly told people that we need to. And again, the future is not solid; it's liquid. It's not solid like in your ice maker. You have to understand that if we permit Israel, the rogue nation of Israel, to attack Iran, it will start the end of the sacrifice of Iran, which is like a cultic sacrifice, will start the precipitation of the end of this age, the end of the world, and the reemergence of this new empire of evil. We can't let that happen. And the fact is, they're planning, they're plotting, they're getting ready for a nuclear attack on Iran, and thank God, hopefully it won't happen, but the fact is all the military evidence indicates that it's not just a military attack, it's an occultic ceremony, too.
Yes, and that takes us straight to the Gulf of Aden, which they say is the death place of Cain and Abel. They say is the original Garden of Eden.
It is. In fact, if you ask anybody who's lived there in Yemen or in the area of the Red Sea, they'll tell you it's the Garden of Eden, E-D-E-N. That is where the Garden of Eden was, in the Mesopotamian Valley. It was there at the bottom end of the Red Sea there on the eastern coast, which is basically the most western flank of Yemen. That's where Eden was.
Okay, so let's pull this story all together. So we have Supreme David Rockefeller, Lucifer, announcing that he's building the temple in Jerusalem. Now, this temple is based on Solomon's temple, and if you're into the occult and magic, you're going to study Solomon's grimoires. The Bicentennial Mall out inside of Nashville is Solomon sealed buying spirits. That was put there in 1996, lighting things. We can use these type of, because they are so ritualistic, I use this type of data to project what they're going to do. And so my projection has been for the 4th of July, the Pope moving on the Temple Mount. Now, the reason this all comes together is when we're looking at things like the Temple of Solomon, what we're talking about now is also the inside of a Freemasonic temple. That is what they're doing their rituals in, as they circle the altar, and this is what all your leaders do, people. They go into these dark rituals, and they put on their hooded robes, and they do ritual around an altar, okay?
Right.
That is your leaders, that is your presidents, that your senators, and your
no different, eyes wide shut, in other words, if you've seen that movie.
Well, but it's even more esoteric than that.
Oh, much more.
So let me just throw that. What we're looking at is that this is the Freemasonic level. They are inside of the Solomon's Temple. Solomon's Temple was built to house the Ark of the Covenant, right? And when we look at the Ark of the Covenant, we see a perfect electromagnetic transferring device that can be used as a weapon of mass destruction. That is what the Ark of the Covenant was done. Now, we have an announcement just prior to our invasion of Yemen that the Ark of the Covenant had been found there. Now, just prior to this, the Ethiopian church had announced they had the true Ark of the Covenant, and he was going to go meet with the Pope, and we never heard from him again. Later, he said, well, okay, we heard from him again, but he said that they had the true Ark of the Covenant there in Ethiopia, but that they weren't going to show it off. He never meant to say they were showing it off. But just prior to our attack in Yemen, the archaeologists announced that they had found evidence to suggest that the Ark of the Covenant is in Yemen. Next thing you know, America goes in. Next thing we find is a magnetic anomaly unfolding under the ocean, under the Gulf of Aden, that seems to be creating a vortex in the ocean there, what some people are calling a seagate. This whole area was taken under attack over the idea of piracy, and the coded name for the pirate ship that they had to save was the Sirius Star. And the Sirius Star is the same as Aleister Crowley's AA, the Argento Nostrum, the Silver Star, the Sirius Star, Sirius B, the Dark Sun.
Right, it's also the star that
NATO, U.S., UK, China, Sweden, Iran, India, all into this area, while there's this magnetic anomaly under the ocean opening.
Now, of course, the dark sun you're talking about is no different than the dog star sun of the Dogon tribe of Africa. It's the same as the Thule Gesellschaft, the black sun It's called the Serpent Star. In fact, if you actually name the actual astronomical name of it, the red star you see in that particular Sirius B galaxy is called Betelgeuse. Interesting, hey?
Absolutely.
So, may have pounded you with a little bit of information, but you need to go check out these names. Betelgeuse, Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse, it's a super giant red star in the eye of the dragon. Back in a moment. Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report, and I always like to ask the questions, what if? We want to stretch people beyond, not necessarily to say this is my final conclusion, but to realize that the sources of information are bringing together the fact that our world is run by super scientists, such as the people that run JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, NASA, which in Hebrew reads high and lifted up in Hebrew. When you start understanding the nature of symbology of time and space and ley lines and specific latitudes, these people are using advanced mathematics and numerology to run everything in their life. In fact, that is the architecture of their universe. It's the symbology that they are the prescient power over the planet, even in the laying down of city streets, the location of cities and capitals, the times when they do specific events have specific numerological timing. And this is quite amazing. Let's continue with some of our dialogue about the fact that we are in a cosmic and a galactic battle. This is not something that's imaginary. It's very real. And the interesting movies and series that came out, like Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars and so on, give hints at pieces of this, but don't want to come up with a full spectrum of what's really going on, do they?
No, but they do. I definitely use them as tools for study. There's no doubt about this,
right.
That the military-industrial complex is Hollywood. It always has been. There's no difference. And so, yeah, we track it from Walt Disney programming us to now still Walt Disney programming us.
Right.
We see it in our leaders that they're just giving us words. Obama comes out and says there's a deficit of trust. Yeah, you better believe that. He says we need to expand our moral imagination, right? And Disney's always telling you how they're going to capture your imagination. But Obama comes in and says, we need soldiers on peacekeeping missions. Is this not war, is peace? He says our moral imagination says to bomb the heck out of them and then reap the benefits of the reconstruction like Germany and Japan. We watch as they use predictive programming to engineer the whole structure prior to it happening. So we had Morgan Freeman as our original Obama president in Hollywood to teach us about deep impact and incoming asteroids. And even Dave Chappelle did a great skit on this whole idea. We had the Will Smith coming in, engineering the idea of these genetic strains of, vampiric zombies, but
exactly.
Also promoting the whole black president moving in, it's predictive programming to Obama. At this point, so we see that they had built this concept of the Morgan Freeman, the savior of the planet, the great high president that can save us all, and at the same time announced that we have this incoming Apophis. And now they're saying U.S. scientists are calling for the creation of an international asteroid defense agency. It's like we live in the sci-fi movies that we are watching.
Well, what they do is they program us when they want to release it. I know from this is now, how many years ago would it be now? 16 years ago to 14 years ago when I worked there with CCOM. The fact is that they've had these space-based platforms. 95% of these weapon systems are aimed out in space to incoming objects of various types, both artificial and non-artificial. And that, in fact, part of this whole process of geoengineering the Earth, which they've been playing around with, isn't just to, quote, affect global warming. That's the cover story. The real issue is to create a Dyson sphere against solar mass ejections, to use it for torsional vortex imaging so the Earth to lay out in four-dimensional space all the resources, and looking at underground bases as well of both your potential enemies and other bases that are not, the normal inhabitants of this planet, and to understand exactly what's going on. And the average person is, we call it profane, doesn't want to believe this, but those people listening in the lettered agencies are fully aware that what I'm talking about is real. They fully understand that why are they building bases, as the Jesse Ventura specialist, that costs of hundreds of billions of dollars per year, not only in America but around the world. why are they in such a desperate desire to do this, but they won't even put surge protectors on the power grid or harden our satellites against incoming solar mass ejections? Why are they just leaking information gradually through big blockbuster movies or leaked things that come out of NASA, and then they do a kind of a intellectual and what I call gymnastics to try to cover it up very poorly, in fact, in many ways, so that you can kind of believe what you want. But if you're a hard-nosed scientist, you look at it and say, damn, the Chandra satellite says there's something incoming below the ecliptic near the inner solar system below Jupiter. There's evidence that the solar, the protection of Earth from the magnetosphere is gone, because last July they flew these 5 satellites right through the geomagnetosphere, and between 22 to 24,000 miles out, 4 Earth diameters is a giant magnetic hole. I mean, these are not open for dispute. They're not like, I didn't make it up, you didn't. This fact is they're fully aware of this, and they want to use these things, and the lack of preparation is in a sense, a negative event to not prepare the population and prepare themselves so that the rest of the population of Earth, get extinguished with manufactured plagues, with weaponized food, with societies that are increasingly dependent on I like this analogy in the Bible, a house built on sand, which is the microchip or the silicon-based chip. And yet, they know darn well that when the solar mass ejections and solar wind occur, these micro-based systems, including your refrigerator, your car, your cell phone, are all going to die if they're not hardened against these kind of events. And no preparation whatsoever, total lies, and again, this fits in exactly with the Mayan prophecies about all the devices going crazy at this time of change.
Well, they're openly announcing that solar cycle 24 will make itself felt as never before. They're saying, doomsday, asteroids, solar flares,
it's on Fox News.
We're going to end NASA.
Yeah, it ends up in Fox News, and hey, at the same time, even the Russian scientists are literally going to a tizzy over this and saying, hey, my gosh, we're going to put our own stuff up there to stop Apophis. We want to do our space-based things, and the Chinese likewise are doing it. The fact is they've been collaborating for decades, and it's all part of the public, I call it pablum, so that people believe one lie, and they want to demonize America and say America's weak, America's lost all its power. America is thousands of years ahead of every other nation in technology. It's just plain insanity to assume America is the sleeping dragon, that it's dying, its economy is destroyed. It's hogwash. They're moving toward the mark of the beast. America is prescient in supercomputer technology with a Cray 4 and Cray 5 gallium arsenide supercomputer array, with advanced transportation at maglev trains at up to 2.2 Mach underground. The technologies of space travel, sub and above light. People don't want to believe this stuff. They don't want to believe we have tokamak nuclear fusion reactors. This is thousands of years ahead of pebble bed reactors and the other things that are out there. They don't want anybody to know anything. It's all released to public consumption, and they even have it planned. Yes, we'll release this technology in 2085, and this one in 2210, and this one in 2250. They got it all planned out. Literally, it's that systematic.
Well, they've got to be somewhat giggling as they're announcing this Jesuit connection to CERN when the Vatican is sending their astronomer physicist Gabriel Gianti in with CERN to find the astroparticle.
Gabriel. And the astroparticle is a soul particle, literally the particle by which, quote, the soul is made, because they know